Welcome back. They're still alive, and so are you. This is the Dan Corder Show. South Africa is a movie.
Welcome to the watch party.
They're nearly there, guys. Okay, so one of my favorite people to watch on the South African internet and beyond is a man named Zamasa Vabasa, better known as Mooshtaffa. He's the kind of person who finds a really interesting data point and goes all the way to the depths of the information about a country which, let's be honest, is really hard to understand. South Africa is really hard to understand. It's very complicated. It's like your ex who you kind of want to see again, but there was a lot going on. It's really, really complicated. It's like a Facebook status in 2008. And what Mooshtaffa does so well is he works through this content, works through this data, and comes up with really, really interesting insights. And recently, in fact, just a few days ago, he released a new video essay on what even is the middle class in South Africa. We have an idea of what the middle class is, but how much does it earn? The weird thing about the middle class in South Africa is it might just be very, very, very few people. It might be the top 2% as opposed to the top 1%, versus other countries where it's a lot more people. What is it about the middle class that makes them somehow having money but also precarious? And this is something that we all want to talk about and better understand in South Africa as our middle class slowly but surely gets bigger. So without further ado, he's here tonight. Please welcome to the Dan Corder Show for the very first time. I can't believe it's the first time. Yeah. Mooshtaffa is here, everybody. Yeah. Welcome, man. How you doing?
It's a good one. The board, I like the board.
You like the board?
I like the board.
That whiteboard has been seen 7 million times or something by now. It's how people understand the Mkhwanazi cinematic universe. It's crazy.
The MCU.
Yeah, exactly. Better than DC, for sure.
Definitely.
Okay, tell me a little bit about the middle class and what they're earning.
So it's the first interesting thing about the middle class in South Africa is where the term actually comes from. And it comes from, and it was adapted from black diamonds. And this was like in the mid-2000s where black people were now leaving en masse, relatively, from townships and moving into suburbs. So then what they did is that a lot of researchers started to look at the numbers. And they said, okay, these people that are able now to leave the townships and move to the suburbs, how much money are they making?
Right.
How much are they driving in terms of sales? Because we also have to understand South Africa, where we are now. We, from those mid-2000s, were doing quite well, and we had started to become almost a consumerist economy. So we started to gauge on how much we were able to buy and generate, and our GDP was doing like a lot. So back then, there was that you were a diamond, you were special if you could be classified as being part of the middle class. You weren't BEE, and you went to 10 entrepreneurs didn't exist, the term back then, it was just BEE. You weren't sort of like BEE or Fantastic Four, those, but you were able to get by, and you could get the SUV, you definitely could jump into that compressor 180, C180. So that's where it was. But now, we've all kind of found well, it's muddy. It's muddy because everybody and their mom is deciding what middle class is.
Okay.
So stats say that if you're making 27,000 Rand every single month, they consider you to be middle class, right?
Okay.
But there's a very interesting thing around...
Can I quickly pause there?
Yeah.
Is that total household income, 27,000?
Yes.
So you're going to have two people earning 13,500
Then
each.
you're a middle class household because you can afford you can afford certain things. Like you've got a microwave, you've got a car, might not be the best car, but you've got access to things and you can kind of get by relative to the cost of living in South Africa. UCT research, they say 22,000 Rand is middle class, right? And then they say the upper limit is 75,000 Rand. Post that, you're pretty much in the upper classes. Then you've got 80-20 that also did some research. They also like 8 to 3,000 to 30,000 Rand. Bureau of Research into Economic Research says 5,000 to 20,000 Rand.
Is middle class?
Middle class. Okay. Why this is interesting is because middle class, they use the average. So they take all salaries in South Africa and then all the amount of people that work in South Africa and they divide. Then they find the average. But then there's the median, which is where most people are earning in South Africa. And that amount is around 5,400 Rand a month.
So do you think that our understanding of middle class should be the median, which means the most people? Where are they Like how much are they making money? Or do you think the meaning of middle class should be what can you afford? I think for a lot of people, when it comes to mind, they think, okay, middle class is a certain kind of life. Like I often think that like if you watch an average Netflix show, unless it's explicitly about the hyper wealthy, that's probably depicting what most of us would think of as middle class. You've got a house, you've got a few cars, your kids can go to a decent school, you're not job insecure, you're not even potentially financially insecure, you're handling your debts fine, there's enough food in the fridge. I think that's what most people think of when they think of as middle class, even here.
So it's such an important thing because the middle class is actually broken up into subclasses. So you can be lower middle class, middle class, and upper middle class.
Right.
And that's actually quite important because at different stages within these subcategories, you are able to comfortably, and this is what's important, comfortably afford certain things as you go up.
Right.
So yes, maybe at lower middle class, you actually can't afford a car, but you're considered middle class because if public transport was up to scratch, you would then feel comfortable, but you still use public transport. Then when you get to middle, that's when you can afford a smallish car, right? To get around. But then remember, getting that car means you got to pay it back every single month, but also petrol to get around or diesel. Then upper middle class is when you are now comfortable. It's when you can walk into like a Woolies and you got the K-Way jacket on and it's not going to hit you that terribly. So there are even subclasses within this class of things. So yes, it goes on what you can afford. And I think the depiction of that in South Africa has gotten a lot of things screwed on the wrong way because a lot of people then base we've never shown like normal living in South African television. We also don't do that well enough now in these days. It's always either abject poverty, where a lot of people say there's poverty corn, and then you've got seriously rich people. So in the middle people who are the backbone of this economy, who pay the most tax in terms of as a grouping of people, they don't see themselves as much represented in society in South Africa.
Totally.
Thus, a lot of them overspend a lot to try and reach those same people that you talk of, where you see this person who's got 5 cars, etc., and he's on Instagram, and everyone is like, oh, but where does he work? It's like, well, who knows? Maybe he's part of the MCU.
And that also does absolutely influence what South African society chooses to spend their money on, right?
Yeah.
So like you'll go into debt so that you can have an international holiday, shake your ass in a thong on a yacht in Dubai. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like, what's the new series they've got about slay queens and baddies and whatever?
I saw it. So, I don't know why they're making it.
Or like that other series, Young Black African and So
famous
Rich.
And African,
or like whatever. And if you see, look, that's the standard, and if you don't make it, you're basically at the bottom.
100%.
It's corrosive, and then we've got gambling problems and debt problems in this country, so it all kind of interweaves. And I think a lot of people do care very deeply because there is a huge difference in people's minds between working class and middle class. There is a conception of identity difference between the two about success.
So it's so important to actually like place that out in front of people because these conversations are ones that people find themselves into. No one actually talks about your classification and what that would ultimately either get you or should get you or where you should be, because you're only ever taught about personal finance, or like people hammer you down personal finance because they want you to buy their products. A lot of financial services providers do that, but they've never actually taught people how to understand where you are in life holistically and that you're not actually being left out. That gives people a lot more comfort to know that you're not being left out, so that when you make decisions, that's why there's a lot of comfort now within the middle class around buying Chinese and Indian automobiles, right? Cars from those countries, because they're affordable. They're comfortable in buying them because they give them the same tech, the same things that they see the rich people have in their cars. And now they can get them and they feel comfortable saying, I'll buy this car and that car, and it doesn't kill your pocket.
You don't have to have a Mercedes. I want to ask one question just to loop back to what you started on. So the idea of a black diamond in the mid-2000s, people who've been able to accumulate wealth for themselves, escape, or at least escape poverty, leave townships or whatever, end up living in the suburbs, particularly black South Africans. Do you think that people now need to perceive the hyper-wealthy as the black diamonds so that they don't have this corrosive feeling? Like, do you think that we live in a country now where it is much more possible than it was in the mid-2000s for a black person to accumulate wealth, or at least a less wealthy person to accumulate wealth and get into, let's say, the 27,000 rand a month middle class?
So, you know what's interesting about that is that where we are now in terms of the opportunities that exist in front of people to make a lot of money or to get into and be comfortable within the middle class, there are a lot more opportunities. The reason why the people in the mid-2000s were called Black Diamonds was because there weren't that many opportunities.
Right.
And we were new to it. It was a new thing. So they would have been singled out as a grouping of people. Now the middle class has become wider. The problem that I always have with the middle class in South Africa is that it's heavily supported, and look anywhere across the country, any of our provinces, by community services, which is ultimately people working in government.
Okay.
So a lot of the people who are middle class and comfortably so actually work in civil service,
okay,
which becomes problematic in the sense of what are we doing to encourage more people to go out and kind of either be in the private sector or create opportunities within small businesses to then grow. That's how we're going to grow the middle class, by creating private employment that doesn't heavily rely on the state employing people to be middle class.
Right. Is the hope then, though, that like if you're first generation of family who makes money off of father and mother being civil servants, which enables a good quality of life for the kids, getting good quality education, which gives them the opportunity maybe then to go and make private money, that is potentially one way that first generation government employee can translate to building private wealth?
100%. I totally agree with that. I think the core thing that people have to understand is that in order for there to be a revolution for South Africa to grow, that growth is going to come from the middle class.
I see.
It's not going to come from the rich. It's not going to come from the people in the lower classes, unfortunately. It's going to come from nurturing these people to take risks, to start things, in order for growth to happen. The people with the money are at the top. The people with the ideas are in the middle because they've got the education, they've got the ability to think laterally, and they can get a lot of things done. But I think in future, what we need to get right as South Africa is to be a little bit easier on ourselves, on our situations, and to understand and put those who are in power to a lot more scrutiny relative to what they have to do around the economy. A lot of our ills in this country can be solved by solving the economic question of where we're going.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Thank you so much. Wasn't that brilliant? Mooshtaffa, everybody. Thank you so much.